Known as a great power throughout the Delta Quadrant and beyond, the Borg Collective were a species of cybernetic humanoids who grew their ranks and advanced their knowledge by assimilating distinct life forms and technologies, resulting in the conquest of countless worlds and systems. Suppressing individual identity, the Borg shared information and thoughts through a collective consciousness, allowing them to act as a singular, unified entity. Obsessed with achieving a state of perfection, they pursued a policy of focused aggression and ruthless expansion, where they assimilated anything deemed useful and destroyed any direct opposition. By the late 24th century, the Borg held vast holdings in their native Delta Quadrant, but by the end of the century suffered a number of defeats and catastrophes, dealing a significant blow to their numbers and crippling their continued efforts for expansion. One such catastrophe came in the year 2373, when the Borg discovered fluidic space, an extra-dimensional realm home to a species never before encountered, whose physiology they described as the apex of biological evolution. Eager to add their biological and technological distinctiveness to the collective, they broke through the dimensional barrier separating their realms by using quantum singularities created by a modulated graviton beam. The species they designated 8472, otherwise known as the Undying, were the sole occupants of fluidic space, and so when the Borg invaded, they deemed it an unacceptable threat and set out to exterminate the enemy. Unprepared to face the might of species 8472, the Borg soon learned they evolved to possess a number of great advantages, such as telepathy, great physical strength and size reaching 3 meters tall, did not require sleep, were able to survive in the vacuum of space, produced a biogenic field which made them nearly invisible to sensors, and possessed an immune system that destroyed any foreign substance entering their body. This made them immune to assimilation and nanoprobes in general, the main weapons and tools of the Borg. When engaged in close-range combat, species 8472 fought with their claws, lashing out in the hopes of merely making contact, so their cells might infect the enemy and consume them from the inside out. If captured, or in terrible pain, without hope for rescue or recovery, species 8472 was even able to end its own life by releasing a cellular toxin into their bloodstream. Their ships were organic beings, heavily armored and shielded, capable of warp speed and operated by a single pilot. Entirely outmatched in their first encounter, the Borg lost every ship sent into fluidic space, but that was only the beginning, as species 8472 then followed them into the Delta Quadrant, seeking to cleanse the Milky Way galaxy of all lesser, weak, impure life forms, starting with the Collective, to protect themselves and their home from further contamination. Unable to assimilate their enemies or their technology, the Borg could not gather more information and adapt to the situation, lacking any effective method or strategy to defend themselves, resulting in massive casualties during the 6-month conflict, losing ships, planets, and entire systems. Yet as the war verged on the edge of disaster for the Collective, everything changed when the Federation starship Voyager entered Borg space. In the midst of a potentially decades-long journey back to the Alpha Quadrant, Voyager mapped out a route they called the Northwest Passage, where they detected no Borg activity and so hoped to pass through their space unnoticed. Yet this proved impossible, as they unknowingly entered a war zone, discovering 15 destroyed Borg cubes and a seemingly abandoned 8472 bioship. Sending an away team to investigate, they learned the Borg were destroyed by a species they could not identify and set out to examine the alien ship. However, the ship's pilot soon reappeared, injuring and nearly killing Ensign Harry Kim before they beamed back to Voyager. The creature then powered up its ship and fired at the Federation vessel before going to warp. Kes, a telepathic member of the Voyager crew, informed the captain that she sensed this was a new, extremely hostile species bent on cleansing the galaxy of impure races. Janeway then set her crew to learning all they could to defend themselves against this new threat. Ultimately, it was Voyager's holographic doctor that found the solution to their problem, discovering a way to create a possible weapon while treating Harry Kim and examining the remains discovered from the battle site, modifying Borg nanoprobes so they might neutralize the infectious cells of species 8472. Using the doctor's knowledge as a bargaining chip, Janeway took Voyager directly into a Borg system where she negotiated with the Hive Mind, offering to share their newly discovered weapon in exchange for safe passage through Borg space. The offer was accepted, and for a time they worked together, creating weapons and defenses to use against their common foe. A Borg representative, designated 7 of 9, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01, was even assigned to work with the captain on one of their ships to facilitate their collaboration. To safeguard against Borg treachery, Janeway refused to share all the details about their work and had the doctor's program ready for deletion, which would destroy his knowledge of the technology and make it impossible for the Borg to continue without them. Yet before they could make sufficient progress, Species 8472 launched a brutal attack that forced the Borg to sacrifice their vessel in order to evacuate a small group to Voyager so they might escape and continue the work. 7 of 9, one of the drones transferred, stated that the loss of their ship changed the parameters of their deal, demanding that Voyager travel to the nearest Allied vessel, which was a 5-day journey deeper into Borg space. Yet Captain Janeway was in a medically induced coma for an injury suffered in the attack, and so Commander Chakotay, the first officer, took command, refusing to alter course, thereby breaking their treaty with the Borg. Never on board with the plan to begin with, he would not take the risk of moving deeper into Borg space, as he suspected they would eventually break the agreement and assimilate the crew. Making matters worse, Species 8472 then launched a massive attack in the heart of Borg space, destroying over 4 million drones, and so 7 of 9 took desperate action, accessing Voyager's systems to open a rift and launch the ship into fluidic space. In this way, Voyager would have no choice but to finish the weapon and defend themselves against their hostile enemies. Captain Janeway then awoke and was angered by Chakotay's decision to break the agreement, once again making peace and working with the Collective through their representative 7 of 9. Completing the project, Voyager's weapons and shields were modified with the new nanoprobe technology, and they at last defeated Species 8472, eliminating 4 of their ships. 7 of 9 then brought Voyager back to the Delta Quadrant, and they once again engaged the enemy, destroying another 13 bioships. Janeway then demanded Species 8472 return to their realm, or else face further destruction, and so the remaining bioships fled back into fluidic space, ending the war with the Borg and Voyager crew victorious. Realizing the Borg no longer required their Federation allies, 7 of 9 attacked them and attempted to assimilate their ship, but they anticipated this betrayal, with Chakotay already connected to a neural link with 7 of 9, an ability acquired during his time on a world populated by former Borg drones escaping the Collective. He used this link to distract and disrupt 7 of 9, just long enough for the Voyager crew to short out her station and knock her unconscious. Janeway then ordered the ship to continue its journey to the Alpha Quadrant, with 7 of 9 confined to sickbay. In the aftermath of the Borg Species 8472 war, at least one member of fluidic space was left behind after their retreat, trapped in the Delta Quadrant, where it was pursued for months by Hirogen hunting parties, until encountering the Voyager crew, who captured it in the hopes of returning it to fluidic space. Yet 7 of 9, the former drone, now member of the Voyager crew, still held a grudge, refusing to allow its escape, instead sending it to a Hirogen ship where it might be killed. When a Borg rebellion began and a number of drones regained some part of their individuality to fight against the Collective, the rebels spoke of possibly reaching out to Species 8472 so they might unite against their common enemy. Greatly shaken and disturbed by the creation of nanoprobe warheads, Species 8472 were convinced the Federation would one day enter fluidic space and exterminate their kind, and so prepared another invasion force, this time building an exact replica of Starfleet headquarters on Earth, and then using their technology to assume human form so they might learn to mimic their enemy and plant agents in the heart of Federation space. But the Voyager crew discovered one of these sites, leading to negotiations where they learned Species 8472 was only ever trying to defend themselves, implying that the harsh words spoken during their initial encounter of extermination and weakness were merely words of war spoken against what they perceived to be an invasion force threatening their very existence. Then they agreed to a technology exchange, ending the hostilities between their species, at least temporarily, and so Species 8472 returned to fluidic space. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Thomas the Kinslayer, Barachado, Sir Willem the Dawn Treader, and Sir Xavier, Defender of the Flame. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/civilizationx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.